Hey, welcome to How It's Done, a podcast for curious marketers. I'm Kriste Goad. I'll be your host, and I'm really glad you're here. Hello, curious marketers. As part of our ongoing series on the transformative power of artificial intelligence, this episode is all about how to upskill your team. How do you make sure you and your team first know how to use AI, when to use AI, how to integrate it into work and workflows, and the kinds of tools and strategies you need to stay ahead? My guest today is Mitch Duckler, founder and managing partner of FullSurge. FullSurge is a brand and marketing strategy consultancy based in Chicago. Mitch has more than 3 decades of experience working with Fortune 1000 companies in the US and beyond. He also is a frequent speaker and has spoken at dozens of high-profile events across 5 continents, including a TEDx talk. And there's more. Mitch is the author of the best-selling book, The Indispensable Brand. And in large part, why he's here today, he has a new book out called The Future Ready Brand: How the World's Most Influential CMOs Are Navigating Societal Forces and Emerging Technologies. Mitch, welcome, and thank you for joining me on the How It's Done podcast.
Thank you, Kriste. Great to be with you.
Well, it's great to have you. Let's just dive right in and kick things off with you and telling our listeners a little bit about yourself and how AI is changing the marketing industry. I'd love to know more about this new book of yours.
Yeah, so I wrote the book, and it's been out actually several weeks now, so it's hot off the press. But it basically what I wanted to do is talk to some of the best and brightest minds in marketing about how the marketing landscape is changing and evolving given the confluence of societal and technological trends. So on the technological side, I had a number of conversations around artificial intelligence, machine learning, predictive analytics, and then also realities. So virtual reality, augmented reality, and then Web3, blockchain, NFT tokenomics, et cetera. I talked to over 40 chief marketing officers, mostly Fortune 500 companies, about how they're using these technologies today and how they're impacting their current roles and how they see their roles evolving, given the fairly rapid adoption of especially AI.
Mm-hmm. And these are CMOs from across industries, is that correct?
Yes, all over the board. You name it. Some in professional services such as IBM and Accenture, in healthcare, Abbott, financial services, auto industry, Lexus and Toyota, so BMW. So I purposely wanted to have a cross section, right, of different industries because I think they are all being impacted very differently by these technologies.
Did you have any huge aha moments as you were researching and writing this book?
Oh gosh, yeah, there were a few. I mean, one is that and a lot of the CMOs actually refer to this, and that is that they feel that right now we are in a point in time that is equally disruptive and transformative as the internet was some 25 years ago.
Yes. I believe that to be the case as well.
Yeah, which is pretty remarkable when you think about it, right?
Yeah, and the fact that we're going to live through something as transformative as what we now know the internet was.
Yeah.
I mean, potentially we're going to live through even maybe another one of these cycles if we are fortunate to live that long.
Exactly. Yeah, and it's exciting. I think another thing that came across in a lot of these interviews is that this is also a window in time where it's really possible and necessary to dive in and get involved and experiment, test, and learn with some of these different technologies. Nobody I've talked to rather is taking a wait and see attitude, even though there are issues, right? And when we know a lot of the issues, especially with AI and the concerns around, data privacy and a lot of the regulatory issues. And, when we talk about metaverse, where is metaverse even headed? And is there going to be a single platform or multiple metaverses? And blockchain has a whole host of issues and unknown questions as well. So it's tempting to say, you know what, let's just kind of take a wait and see attitude, but they aren't. And they're proceeding, but they're proceeding cautiously and experimenting and on smaller scales, pilots. And they feel like they got another year or two. And then if they haven't done what they're doing right now, they'll be behind the eight ball, right? They'll be behind the learning curve. So they're doing it themselves, and they're encouraging others to get out there and experiment and get your hands dirty with some of these new technologies and find out what they're all about.
Which is, in my experience, it's kind of the only way to do it. And I think it's interesting also because there's all kinds of new tools that are leveraging AI. And so you can do your work differently, better, more efficiently. And they don't have to be these huge investments. They don't have to be huge platforms. I just think of, for example, some of the pretty rapid evolution of some of these, even, meeting, recording, and transcription services and platforms, which can really scale back the time that your teams are spending on summary notes from a client call, for example, or, anything like that. There's ways that are big, obviously, that this transformation is going to happen, but there's also those small ways that maybe don't get talked about as much.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think you hit on an important point in that they all are very accessible. And even if you take a look at some of the Gen AI, right, like the Chat GPT, I mean, it's free or $20 a month, I guess, if you want kind of the custom. But that's all very affordable, and I think it is just like the internet did, right, a quarter century ago. It is democratizing the marketing landscape. One of the other things I thought was interesting is when I talked to B2B marketers in particular.
Yes,
they were quick. Yeah, they were quick to point out that they feel that AI in particular has the ability to really elevate the very nature and stature and profile of the marketing function, in the C-suite and across the organization to a much more strategic level, right? I think, I work across different industries, but, and it's very common in more consumer oriented or like CPG, right? For those companies to be marketing driven and for marketing to definitely have a seat at the strategy table. But a lot of times in B2B, that's not the case. And they're relegated to more of a staff function, if you will, and more tacticians than strategists. And they're saying that, this has the ability to change that. And encouragingly, you don't need to become a data scientist in order to do that, right? You just need to befriend your CIO or your IT folks, find out what's out there, what kind of solutions and even data sets that you have access to. And all of a sudden, you are much more, especially when coupled with machine learning and predictive analytics, you're much more in a driver role for a business than perhaps you've ever been.
Can you say more about that? I don't know if where my head goes when you say those words is where it actually, where you're talking about. But what initially comes to my mind is, I've certainly been inside companies as well as, have clients who we're trying to market them, and we're trying to, differentiate the company and the brand. And we're like, what data can you give us? What can you tell us about, we've got all this data, let's just call it, we've got all this data around smoking cessation. What can you tell us? And then historically, the answer has been, oh, we can't really get that information out across, we can't, it's too hard to get that information out. We can't, there's all kinds of reasons why we can't give you that information. We're like, okay, that's going to make it a little more difficult, but okay, we'll work around it. Are you talking about that kind of data or that kind of, strategy, or what are you talking about specifically?
Well, I think if you think about what marketing is really charged with, it's understanding the understanding the marketplace, understanding the competitive set, understanding customer needs and wants and purchase drivers and so forth. And I think what AI has the ability to do is to understand those things at a much finer, more granular level than ever before. There's a couple of concepts that I talk about in the book too: micro segmentation and hyper personalization. So what do I mean by those? Like, micro segmentation is, as the name would suggest, you can segment the market at a much more granular, much finer, more granular level than ever before with AI. It's not just, hey, what is your 5 or 6 segment schema, right?
Right.
Based on high level attitudes or behaviors. I talked to a lot of CMOs that they're saying, you know what, we're developing, thousands of micro segments because of what AI is able to do, right? To understand the combinations of different variables and what they mean for example, what to offer, right? Or the message to deliver consumers, right? So micro segmentation, again, is not just, segmentation went a long way towards, years ago, towards not doing the same thing for everyone, right? Let's kind of talk about 5 or 6 or 7 different segments, and then we have different offers or experiences or communication for each. What this is doing is saying, well, forget about 5 or 6 or 7. Let's talk about thousands, and then the hyper personalization is, okay, once you have these micro granular segments, what's the optimal offer or the message that will resonate with them? And this was never possible at scale, right? It's essentially the one-to-one version of marketing that Peppers and Rogers talked about, decades ago, which really wasn't possible, again, because even though in theory marketers could do it, it just wasn't possible to scale. You didn't have the computing capability that you do today with AI.
What kinds of tools would marketers look to use to do what you're talking about doing?
Well, I mean, there's all kinds. I mean, basically, they're again, tools that just they're able to combine data and information from so many different sources, right? They're combining contextual, like where are you and what time of day, with what you've done previously, so your behavioral data, and then it's playing all kinds of predictive analytics. So what if we were to offer this particular message or offer at this particular time in this location? What's the likelihood that this consumer will bite on this offer, right? And it's I think up till now it's been much more intuitive, and now, while there's no guarantees, right? It's just a lot more data driven. Some of these capabilities are much more data driven than ever before.
I am curious, being someone who is in the sort of specialist space of healthcare B2B, how is AI changing marketing for healthcare marketers? Did you get at that, or do you have some insights? I know you've worked with healthcare companies. You certainly interviewed some CMOs from healthcare companies as part of your overall research. And I'm just curious if you have any insights on that.
I think I did talk to a few. I think one of the themes that emerged is, and I talk about it in the book. I have an entire chapter on, health and wellness, which is broader than specifically healthcare. But, in there, a number of the CMOs talked about how the big tech companies are really changing the very nature of healthcare, right? And they talked about, Amazon, Microsoft, Google. They're essentially allowing, again, just a level of much more in-depth understanding and much more hyper personalization of solutions. that just was never achievable before. So, and even if you talk to a lot of the CMOs that are in traditional healthcare, they're even beginning to talk about the Facebooks, the Googles, the Microsofts, the Amazons of the world being their primary competitors, which is, not necessarily the case 10 years ago or
Talk
even
about
5 years ago.
disruptive and transformative.
Right, right, exactly. So if you were to ask a pharma company or a medical device, a medical device company, who is your primary competitor, you wouldn't expect them to say Google.
Right.
Yeah,
But they are.
but yeah, increasingly,
New
yeah.
world order.
And a lot of it is because of the data, just the incredible wealth of data and information that these companies have on individuals, right? And it's just Apple. What can Apple do with wearable technology, right, today? And you can start to understand why a medical device company might consider Apple as one of their primary competitors when you take a look at what the Apple Watch can do and the amount of data and information and computing power that's on it.
No doubt about that. I'm curious what you learned from the CMOs you talked to, and then just in your day-to-day work. I'm sure you continue to get more and more insight on a daily basis. But what are companies doing to help their employees do what you're talking about doing? Test and learn. How are they getting comfortable with that? What kinds of things are they putting in place to help upskill their own employees and take this time that we have these next 1 to 2 years to do exactly what you were talking about, which is not, get ahead of it rather than fall behind.
Exactly. Yeah, they had some good advice, and they talked about what they're doing individually. One of the things they talked about is the importance of starting with this basic foundational knowledge that pretty much everyone should have, right? And regardless of your role or your level within the company, it's important for everybody just to have some base level knowledge of concepts within artificial intelligence, such as machine learning, predictive analytics, deep learning, neural networks, right? And just know what they are at the highest level, even far at a far higher level than how it impacts their day-to-day jobs, right? And a lot of that is you can get that through secondary resources or online courses or things like that, right? It's just very easily accessed.
And
But make sure people at least kind of understand. I'm sorry?
Well, I was just going to say, you're talking about just understanding the difference in the terminology, even.
Yeah. Yeah, and what they are, right? And what the high level capabilities are, never mind how they're applied necessarily to what you do. But then there is this next level of tailoring training to your specific role. So as you can imagine, marketers have different needs, and there's different applications of AI that will be relevant to them versus somebody who's in operations or finance or human resources, right? So once you have that base level, right, everybody should understand terms that are probably applicable to everybody, regardless of your function. But then you start to learn, okay, well, how can this make my job as a marketer? How can I be more productive? How can I be more efficient? How can I do my job better, right? And so then it's a question of just understanding what roles people are in within your department, and then what you can do, what kind of training you can get them to excel. And then they all talked about too, which is a point that I think you started with, the importance of practical hands-on experience. And all of this stuff is going to feel very conceptual and very theoretical or even academic to people until you actually start to use it, right? There's just no substitute for experience. So eventually you do need to let people kind of tinker with it.
Right.
Also, they talked about the importance of collaboration. So look for AI opportunities on teams that are inherently cross-functional, which I thought was interesting too, because then you begin to learn how other functions across the organization are using it, and just learning from them as well. So so you need to understand at a much finer level how AI can be used in your specific function, but it's also good to know how it's being applied across the enterprise.
Well, I have really enjoyed our time together. Mitch, thank you so much. I've learned so much. I hope our listeners did too. As always, we will be sure to include links and background in our show notes. We'll be sure to include link to your previous book as well as your new book, The Future Ready Brand.
Yeah, there's a lot. So there's information on my company's website about both books, which is FullSurge.com. And then both books are available on Amazon and virtually any online retailer you can imagine. So in digital and paperback.
Digital and paperback. What about audio?
I haven't done audio yet. In fact, somebody asked me that just the other day. I haven't done it yet. I'm still
Get
contemplating it.
AI to do an audio version for you in seconds, probably.
Yeah, it's just I have to get up and do it. I think
Well,
you're
I don't
absolutely
even know
right.
what it takes to accomplish such a thing. So, just wanted to ask.
Well, I used to be. You're right. I hadn't thought about it. I probably should have AI do it. Typically you have to have somebody read your book and record it.
Yeah, now you don't
So
have to do it. These great voices are available, and you can probably pick. It's probably just like your cell phone. You can pick which dialect and which accent, male, female.
yeah, maybe I'll do it with a British accent. I don't know.
Yeah, because
It
everybody
always sounds smarter.
smart. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. It's one of the most common questions I get. Like when I'm following some of the posts on LinkedIn and other social media, it's like, is it available in audio? And I'm like, oh, no, not yet.
Yeah,
So
because I joke, no one reads anymore.
I know. You're
I mean,
right.
of course, we're all like, that's the interesting thing too about the world we live in now. Like we're constantly reading. We just, you know, aren't equating it to necessarily, I read 5 books this month.
Yeah,
I
you're
find
right.
that to be true, but I find I'm like reading so much all day, every day as part of my work that I think my brain is ready to not read anything by the time I
Yeah.
would normally
Yeah, you're right.
open up a book before bed or something.
You're right.
Anyway, more books now than probably ever produced, in the history of books. So the good news is books are not going anywhere. I can't wait to read yours, The Future Ready Brand, and I hope our listeners will take a look as well. Also, for our listeners, don't forget to hit the subscribe button so you never miss an episode of the How It's Done podcast as we continue to explore artificial intelligence and its impact on B2B healthcare marketing, PR and communications, and just the broader marketing universe at large. Again, my guest today has been Mitch Duckler, the founder and managing partner of FullSurge. Thank you so much, Mitch.
Thank you, Kriste. Thanks for having me on.
That's it for now. Thanks so much for listening. We're looking forward to keeping great conversations coming your way as we grow this podcast. There's even more great content from our conversations on our blog. Be sure to check it out at growwithfuoco.com. That's grow with Fuoco, FUOCO.com. Stay tuned until next time, and no matter what, stay curious.